Welcome back to the DNA Pest Control Podcast. It's been a minute.
It's been about 2 weeks.
Been about 2 weeks.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
But everybody's busy. I hope.
Everybody's swamped.
I hope so. We have been peak of the heat, peak of the summer. A lot of work going on. A lot of jobs. A lot of stuff that's pulling us in every direction, which is nice. So we're staying busy and we keep on growing.
It's all been good stuff on our end. So hopefully it's the same way for you guys out there on the business side of it.
Yeah, and talking about the business side of it, that's kind of what we want to keep going with this pattern that we've had, talking a little bit about the smaller businesses and what you guys are going through as starting a company and when to hire your first employee and things like that. We want to dive into that again and go and just touch bases on this. Now, the technicians that are driving in their trucks, the people in the office, keep listening because this is for you just as much as it is for the owner or the person who is thinking about starting their company, because these are all things and what we're going to talk about. And Aaron's going to introduce that, what we are going to talk about, but this is all going to be tied to what you do. And actually a big piece of it is you're going to dictate some of these things and you can help in a lot of ways, which is going to help solidify your position at that company and growth in the company.
I agree.
So what are we talking about?
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to the past couple episodes on starting from the ground up, which is kind of what we'll figure out what we're going to name this series eventually, because it started with just stuff that we're seeing on a day to day that, we could obviously share with you guys. But we started about, when would you get to that point of hiring your first technician and what that looks like? And now that you're at that point, we wanted to go over some of the costs that are involved, like some of the actual costs that it takes to run that with another person or add another person, or even what that begins to look like. Because even when we were planning the episode, a lot of people I feel like will say, okay, I'm going to hire a tech on for $15 an hour, times that by 40 hours a week, times that by however many weeks they work, and that's how much they have to produce. But, how true is that?
Well, that's not true at all.
Yeah, not even close.
Yeah. So if anybody, and it's awesome because most people, I feel most of the technicians who are breaking off and starting their own company actually don't have a background in school at all. So maybe high school is the max, but a lot of them actually have never gone to college. They've never gone past that. So when it comes to the business side of things, they don't know a lot about it. So they think they do the simple math, right? They do the little iPhone calculator math, which everyone jokes about it, where it's, well, I can just type it in, right? Okay, well, that 15 times 40, $600. Okay, well, $600 times 4, right? You're looking at $2,400. I only need $2,400 to pay somebody. No.
Incorrect.
Very incorrect. Economics 101, that is kind of correct if the expenses were there, right? If you make $1, spend $1 per economics, you stay in business and you keep doing it. Not smart business, but you keep doing it per economics. As a smart business person, you would actually be failing, really. I mean, you're barely getting by.
Agreed.
But there is more expenses tied to that as you're hiring your first employee. And that's what we were talking about is you bring on that person. And that's something that we did leave out is we kind of threw out a number, right? You need about 250 customers, maybe 300. And then that is when you can hire somebody.
Yeah.
And that's a rough number. And it all depends on how much you're charging your customer too. Because if you're charging too little, you may need more accounts to be able to pay for that person.
Say that one more time. So I think that's really important if people didn't get that. If you're charging too little,
yeah,
you're going to need more accounts.
And more getting done.
That's what I'm saying. So nickel and diming yourself is really, really hurting you, and stopping you from growing.
Yeah. So like what we've done here, we have multiple different services. So with multiple different services, some services are very affordable and cheap, honestly. Now, our techs are not allowed to be on that property for more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, because it's such a cheap service.
Yeah.
But you get what you pay for. You pay the bare minimum, you get the bare minimum, right? You want to pay for our most expensive package, you can, and we'll be there,
It's
right?
Cadillac package.
And we're going to be there for 45 minutes to an hour or longer because you're paying us for that time.
Correct.
But it's understanding what that's looking like and how that's going to calculate over. Once you get in more variables like employees, that starts to hurt your bottom line if you're not paying attention to it.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people don't see it. And as business starts to grow, that's where it starts to get a lot more fun, in my opinion, right? Because now we get to start seeing all the little numbers and seeing where it comes down.
Yeah.
Now going on, and we're just going to skim the very, very top, okay, of this massive pie of money that we're talking about, right? You have variable costs in a business, okay? You have your set costs and you have your variable costs, okay? Your set costs on the, once again, guys, this is very basic. Okay. So anybody who wants to throw in a comment says I'm an idiot, that's fine. You can, because I'm trying to keep it very, very simple for a lot of people. Your set costs, whether you are working or whether you're not, okay, those are there all the time. Your rent, right? So your rent is going to be the same whether you open doors or they stay closed. It doesn't matter. You have to pay your rent.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're running it out of your house and you say, well, my mortgage is 100% paid for, you still pay what? Property tax in most states. You pay property tax. So if you're paying a property tax, then that would be your set cost across the year, right? That is not going to, well, that will actually change year to year. But you're going to get that set. And so with that is that's what you have to understand. What are your set costs to just run? You hire an employee, you are going to have an additional set cost. That set cost could be insurance for the vehicle, a cell phone, right?
Yeah. Car payment.
A car payment.
Truck payment. Yeah.
Truck payment, anything like that. And that will be a set cost for so many years. And then that will fall off. But you are going to have those set costs. And there's not a ton, but those are going to be set whether that guy gets in a vehicle and runs and sprays houses or it sits out in front of his house until you get him jobs. You will be paying that no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. And so those are the things that you have to look at. So your tech that you hired on at $15 an hour isn't $2,400.
Yeah.
You still have $100 in insurance. You still have a $500 truck payment. Okay. Now, on top of that, you start getting into all of the other little costs that come with it because you're going to have a second truck. So now you have to have another B&G. You got to have another backpack sprayer. You got to have another tank in the truck. You got to have another tool bin in the truck, right? With all your chemical, your chem bin. You're going to have more gloves. You're going to have safety glasses. You're going to have to get insurance for the employee as well. So there is workman's comp.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to start getting all of these additional added costs on somebody that you thought $2,400 is enough. It's not. You still have to pay taxes on that $2,400 as well, right?
Correct.
So you're paying an employment tax, whether that is unemployment tax for them, through the government and whatever else. You're going to have to pay more money than $2,400. Okay. So your set cost isn't going to be set with that employee. Even if you're paying them across the board, you think that's what I got to budget for.
Yeah.
No, budget for more because it's going to be a lot more. Your wear and tear on the vehicles, your tires, your oil changes, everything like that, the equipment now, because your equipment's going to break down. And most people don't pay attention to, is my employee taking care of the equipment as good as I do? That's where so many people get into this, like, oh, I'm going to hire, he's a good kid. He's going to do the job, everything. And then they bring in the B&G broken the next week.
Yeah.
And I've had it. And I'm sitting there like, how the hell did you do that?
Seriously.
I've never broken one. So I don't know. I mean, I've had them clogged and I've had to replace the parts and stuff, but breaking the handle completely off, I've never done that.
Yeah.
I've seen other guys do that now.
Me too.
Now I've had 3.
The first time I saw it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So it happens, some of these are those variable costs. I didn't know I was going to have to spend $100 on a new brass handle for a B&G, and the plunger rod.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea, but those are the things that people don't pay attention to as they get into the business and they start hiring people, is those are going to be a variable cost. You didn't have those expenses before and you didn't really pay attention to them either.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you do it, you're never mad when you do it. I mean, it sucks in the moment, but you're like, whatever, I'll just buy another piece and
Of
go.
course.
When somebody else does it, Now it's eating out of your pocket.
Yeah.
So now you start to pay attention to all those little costs,
Right.
you know, chemical costs on top of there,
Mm-hmm.
double the amount of chemicals.
Yeah.
And if they're using too much, you're going to have that too.
There.
Yep. So you have all of these little costs in there and all these variables that kind of squish together that you don't get to see with hiring somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Getting on to the next thing. Did I hit everything on that?
No, I think you're good.
Okay.
I think the idea is what we made this episode for was to explain, like, yes, you're going to have some things that are your set costs, but even though they're set, you still have some influence. And,
Yeah.
there's still a point in time where you have to check yourself and look around and say, okay, is paying for like the 1 terabyte fastest speed internet worth it? Right? Or is getting this service worth it? Is having the window cleaning service worth it? You start actually going through all the numbers. And I'm not saying to like screw yourself and nickel and dime yourself and make it harder to run your business, but a lack of awareness is, I think, where people like really fail in that category on some of those set costs, where people are like hyper focusing on the controllable costs, which we'll probably get into a little bit more on, like the product usage and what you guys are actually doing out there, how much they're actually spraying with, and the chemical that's going out. But understanding that, looking at it from a big picture and knowing that those are going to be there and this is what you can control a little bit more of, is the idea.
Yeah. And that's really, and everybody's going to be a little bit different on that.
Oh, sure.
And you don't get to see it when you start.
Mhm.
And that's the hard thing, is if you're coming from running a route and it's like, hey, I just want to start my own pest control company now.
Mhm.
You don't see that up until you start hiring people. You don't get to sit down and look through all those numbers. You don't even have the time to do that.
Mhm.
And so then what will happen is 5 years down the road, if you have a couple of guys and then you get a bill and you're like, why is it so expensive? It's because you haven't seen that. You haven't paid attention. You weren't paying attention to those little costs
Yeah.
that start to add up over time.
Mhm.
But with that, the main cost of running a business and pest control business is going to be salaries. Employees, it's pay, right?
Mhm.
That's the biggest expense. And that's why I said office staff, technicians. I don't care if you guys are going to break off and do your own thing or not. You guys need to understand you are the most expensive piece of equipment at that building.
Mhm.
A guy's getting paid 60,000 a year, 50,000 a year, 40,000 a year, 30,000 a year. That's a truck.
Yeah.
Every year.
Mhm.
Like, you guys realize that, right?
Per guy.
Like, I can't emphasize that more.
Yeah.
You don't understand. You start getting into those costs. And of course, people will say, yeah, but you have to have that person. Correct. We do.
Mhm.
We do have to have somebody,
Yeah.
right? You have to have somebody in that vehicle. So we understand that, but understand, as a person working for that company, if that is somewhere where you want to grow, you need to solidify your worth by putting in that extra amount.
Mhm.
But you are the most expensive thing in that company.
Yeah.
And you will always be, wherever you go. It doesn't matter. You're probably the most expensive piece.
Yeah.
Second most expensive piece. Okay. Chemical costs. Chemicals are the second most expensive thing, at least that we deal with.
Mhm.
If you want to say large purchases, of course, vehicles are going to be there.
Yeah.
But most vehicles will last you, I would hope, a minimum of 10 years.
Yeah.
So even if you bought a $60,000 truck, that thing is going to last 10 years. So you're
Yeah.
only talking $6,000 a year,
Yeah.
right? Over that 10 years up until it's retired.
Mhm.
So it still doesn't account for that guy that you're paying 30,000, because by year 10, he's not making 30,000 anymore.
True.
And you've probably paid him close to $500,000 in that time frame.
Mhm.
Maybe a little less as they start to grow, but you're paying a lot of money to them. So you're paying for vehicles over and over and over.
Yeah.
And when we talk about chemicals, this is some stuff where there's a free software system. So if you're using them, I would use them. Or if you're not using them, I would switch and start buying from them. So Forshaw, and I think they're the only ones that do it. I don't know if the Ceres does it, and I
Oh,
don't know
yeah, I
if
don't
there's
know.
any other distributor that does it. So Forshaw is the new distributor in our area. Now they are nationwide. but they have a software system that helps and allows you to keep track of your inventory, where the technicians can even jump in. They can grab inventory, right? They can ask for it, and you can keep track of all your inventory. So once we got the numbers in and we started to pay attention, we can see how much that costs us on a monthly basis per technician.
Which, spoiler alert, prompted this episode.
It absolutely
Yeah.
prompted the episode,
Yeah.
right? Because that's information we had. We can go and look at all of our chemical usage. And when you're small, I'll be honest, it doesn't really matter. You're in survival mode anyway.
It's so easy to know because you're trying to be scarce and do it smart.
Exactly. You're buying
Mhm.
one bottle of product and you're using
Yeah.
it up until it's gone.
Yeah.
And then you're even probably diluting diluted product so
Yeah.
that you can extend it a little bit more, right?
Mhm.
Because you're playing that game. It's scarce, you're about to die. This is life or death in the beginning. And then as you start to grow, you start to pull yourself out of that and you start to pay attention to the chemical cost, the product cost. What is the same exact thing? And it will do the same exact job. I'll give you a perfect example, a glue board. Does it really matter what type of glue board it is? In my opinion, no. Maybe other little picky techs will say, yeah, it matters. We want the ones that are hard plastic that you can
Yeah.
lay down. Does it really matter? It's a glue board.
Mhm.
It's going to do the same thing other than the paper ones won't catch a rat.
Yeah.
Right. So we're looking and diving deeper into per costs. How many callbacks are we doing in a year?
Yeah.
Right. How many jobs are no showed? So they're showing up and they're not even able to complete the job, meaning we just wasted guys' time to go out there.
Yeah.
We paid them gas. We covered all that wear and tear, and they still we didn't get paid for it. We
Yeah.
just showed up out of nowhere. And then we got turned down and we had to leave, or we couldn't get on on the property.
Zero.
So you're looking at all of those little variable costs. And sorry, I went a little everywhere, but coming back to the chemical side, is the chemical usage and the chemicals in general are going to be that second largest expense.
Mhm.
And depending on who you're purchasing from, you may get the software system involved with it, which will help you keep track. And with 4Shots free. So if you're buying product from them and it's only you and another guy, jump on that, because now you're already ahead of the game with using their software system, which is free.
Yeah.
If you're buying product from them, which you're going to buy product from somebody. So why not get a free system while you're doing it, right?
Yeah. Good
Which
point.
is your inventory system. Is there anything you wanted to add with the chemical stuff? Because I'm just going on a rant.
No, you're fine. You're doing good.
So.
Guys who are actually over technicians,
Yeah.
don't assume, because we actually, obviously this prompted the episode, which prompted a meeting for us. And we actually did a fun little training exercise where we had a B&G, just, I think it was just some water in it, but we basically said, hey guys, here's a scenario. You're going in and treating the interior of a home. You're dealing with ants here. They're dealing with this here. What are you doing? Everyone write down your answers. And everybody had wildly different answers. And even though most of them did follow the label, you can't assume that everyone is doing it smart. Everyone's typically going to go on the heavier end of dilution rates because that's just naturally what, and I even found out some of my answers yesterday because I participated. I was like, oh shit, I'm actually doing a little bit heavier than I should be. It's a good reminder. So it's good to really understand what's going on out there. I know a couple years ago, the cilantro rodent bait that we had, we found out that guys were just like, placing like 4 to 6 per spike when it's rated like 1 to 2 in the box at first.
Yeah.
On lighter infestation. So guys were just running through cilantro buckets like on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And it's just like, those are some of the controllable things where a little bit of oversight and understanding what's actually going on out there in the field can really save you some money. It can make or break you if you're, let it get out of hand.
Well, and that's one thing that, I had a conversation with the rep. Well, he's not a rep, but the guy over at 4Shot, is we were talking, and there's a lot of companies that they don't pay their chemical bill. Which is, I don't know how that actually is even possible. I don't know how you don't have money to pay for it, honestly.
It's terrifying.
Well, I do know how people do that. And this is where, as a business owner, when you step into that, it can be really cool and it can be awesome and very rewarding, but it also can suck because you are in control of the bank account. You are in control of that money. And if there's no money in the account, you can't pay for people,
Mhm.
and you're going to pay a guy over the chemical,
Oh, yeah.
over the distributor, of course,
100%.
because you want to keep a guy there to keep working. But you need to structure what you're charging and how much you're making to be able to pay for those things,
Correct.
but those are the costs. And you're right. Our guys, there was all within the label, but everybody does it so differently.
Mhm.
And that's where your uniform service, and I don't think it's going to matter. So I hope the technicians listening, guys, this is something very important as a company. Because if I go out and I use a product and I use an ounce per gallon, that means you should go out and use that product in an ounce per gallon. And by you, I mean Aaron
Mhm.
and the people that are here, right?
Yeah.
The people that are outside of the company, at your company, you need to do what your company deems, fit, because then you get a uniform service and we see
Mhm.
those differences there,
Agreed.
and a lot of it, guys will use more chemicals than they need to use because they think that's better customer service.
Mhm.
I'm servicing better.
Spray it extra heavy.
I sprayed extra heavy. I used more chemical than what was even allowed or was supposed to. The other problem that you run into, and these are things that when you grow more, you have time to pay attention to. And this is where we jumped in and actually started paying more attention to it,
Mhm.
because we did give scenarios, right? We gave the scenario of the B&Gs, halfway full, you're spraying for ants, you have these chemicals, the B&G already has this amount of chemical in it, that you diluted it to a full gallon, and now you're at a half a gallon. So how much more do you put in? And guys will go in, put more product in and fill it a half gallon. So now it's actually past what it
Mhm.
should be,
Mhm.
per the label.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they'll still fall within the label, but now it's just an extra strong product. So if you go an ounce per gallon, but then they also do an ounce per half gallon because they're just used to putting in a half, or an ounce every
Right.
time they fill up their B&G, and they keep doing that,
Mhm.
well, soon that product will hit its limit,
Yeah.
and it will be past the legal limit of what you can actually dilute it to,
Right.
or I should say not dilute it to, because now it's more concentrated.
Yeah. True.
So those are the things that you have to pay attention to. And those are going to be some of your variable costs, right? You can't necessarily control them 100% out in the field. And unfortunately, most techs and people start to create things in their head
Yeah.
that are rules,
Mhm.
and they're not even real. We just created it. Guys will go up into an attic. They had an experience where they saw 5 tunnels and caught 10 rats. So now, if they go up in an attic and see 5 tunnels, they instantly tell the owner, "You got 10 rats."
I've seen it a million. I've seen it once.
I've seen it once, and now that's just the answer. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, that it could be completely different, right? Same with when it comes to spraying for bugs. Some guys will do something in one concoction and in their B&G, and suddenly it's like, well, it worked. And it's like, did you even call and find out?
Yeah.
You didn't. I know you didn't. But people will be like, well, they didn't call back, so it must have worked. And it's like, so
Mm,
now they follow
yeah.
that every time. And it's like, well, now I need to put in 5 ounces in per gallon because
Yeah.
it works.
Right.
So people start to create in their own head. And those are those variable costs that, if it goes unchecked, can get very pricey very quick.
Yeah, I can.
you know and then obviously each technician, as you pull from different companies, they always have their own opinion of, well, I use this product at this company and I
Mhm.
use that product at that company and I like that product and
Yeah.
that product was the best. And it's like, no, in some cases there are better products than, and there's probably worse products, but my opinion is, how are you using it?
Exactly. It's operator error. Yeah.
Yeah, in most cases. And I do think there's really cheap products out there, and they probably don't work at all.
Mhm.
I would assume that.
Yeah.
But you get into the middle grade to high grade product, if you don't know how to treat it and where to place it, I don't think the product's going to work.
Yeah. I have $1 million product. If you don't know what you're doing with it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So being in the field, being
Mhm.
out there, being those techs, understand that you're underneath a manager or an owner that is looking at these expenses and seeing, this is how much product's being used. You grab a gallon of whatever product every single week. that starts to add up. And a lot of people don't know prices.
Yeah.
You see how much it is per gallon when you fill up your truck.
Yeah.
You get to see that. It's not a secret. You're filling it up. It's right there. You don't typically see what it costs when they put products on your vehicle.
That's true.
And it's a lot more expensive than a lot of people think.
Yeah, it is.
They just start running through it. And we actually even didn't know to a certain extent. We knew how much it cost because we can see that, but we didn't see how much one guy was taking.
Yeah, on like a monthly basis.
On a monthly basis until it was monitored. And then we could actually see that. And we were starting to drop, right?
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, that guy ordered $4,000 worth of product in a month. Damn.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. I don't think it was actually that high, but
you get the point.
You can start to see that is you're like, and at that point, actually, if they were, it'd be, you're almost paying more for product than the person.
Seriously. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So you do get some of those, and those variable costs are going to change because you have so many moving pieces, within that you can't control necessarily 100%, I think you want to add on that.
Yeah. I think a good point with that too is we're always big on the value and the production of that certain employee too. So let's say you do have a guy who is requiring that, the product he orders takes about $3,000, but if all he's doing is commercial like cockroach and bedbug services and his production is like skyrocketing through the roof, it doesn't matter as long as it falls within that threshold of a percentage, whatever you deemed. You and I were going back and forth on what we want that percentage of chemical usage to like production value, starting comparing the guys. But if someone's like producing a crazy amount, or, somebody that does a ton of exclusion work and they're requiring a lot of like wood and nails and, just material, and they're constantly buying that stuff, but they're constantly producing, it's not a bad thing that they're spending a lot of money.
No,
it's a bad thing when two guys doing the exact same residential route and one guy is, kind of where he's supposed to be at, and one guy's spending double. That's when it's like, okay, we need to find out what's going on.
Yeah. And that's the number. And these are things that guys don't think about. And they're just like, well, that's like years down the road. And it is. But you need to set that rule now and figure out how you can do that. Because if you can do it, then a tech can do it.
Yeah.
Your employee can do it. If you can't do that now, then don't expect it to be done.
Yeah.
If your callbacks are 2%, then everybody can do that. Obviously give a little bit of, room to be a variable, right?
Yeah.
We can be between 2 and 4%. I'll go off of me as the best standard, right? You're the owner. I hope you would be the best.
Should be.
You're at 2%. That's perfect. You're going to get guys that aren't as good as you. So you're going to give them that 2% variance to 4%. Okay. And that's what they can have on their callback range. Chemical usage, right? We say, okay, it's 5%. Whatever I produce, you can take up to 5%. And that's how much it is per month. So if you produce 30,000, great. 5% of 30,000. That's the amount of chemicals, products, everything you can have on your vehicle and take on a monthly basis. If it starts to go to 6% or 7%, that's something's got to change. And that's where you're going to have to dive in and start to see, are they just putting in too much product?
Yeah.
What are they doing? Too many things around a property.
Yeah.
Another thing is like when we actually talked to a guy just recently, I don't want to do a callback. I'm doing everything I can not to do a callback. And he's doing a lot.
Yeah. Like every house, it's like spraying foundations, eaves, like granular bait, all kinds of bait, literally everything top to bottom. He's pulling out all the stops.
And we ran the numbers and he has a ton of callbacks.
Doesn't matter.
So it's you have to find, and this is where you start to get a little bit more fun when you're playing with it. And as a single owner, play with it then and now, because that's where it gets fun. You can actually start to build these numbers and decide, because you can say, okay, look, if I spray your house, but I don't do the granular bait, do I get at least 90% of the results? If the answer is yes, granular bait's going in the garbage.
100%.
I've been telling you that right now. Like it's garbage, throw it away, and we've done that with some products. I came in, I saw the product line that we were using, all the products that we had. And I said, okay, what products are actually worth it and which ones aren't? And there was one that we ended up canning. And now there's a second one that we ended up just taking away 100%.
Yep.
We don't even have it. We haven't ordered it, and we probably won't ever. And then there's another one we end up moving and switching to a cheaper product that a lot of other companies use. It's just not name brand,
Yeah.
But what we're using it for, we're legally, restricted on how often we can use it. And so we moved to that.
Yeah.
But those are the things that you want to pay attention to as you start diving in, because that's going to start to move that bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's where you go through more chemicals than you're supposed to. You start eating away at that bottom line. You're creating more, right, than you need to, more expenses.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you have to keep an eye on and control, because we're here to live, right? We're here to thrive. Most guys that are getting into the business, they're not looking at it as, man, I'm just going to go and work and I'm going to be the tech and then I'm going to
break even.
Yeah, I'm just going to work until I'm 70, right? Like, and there's some guys that do that.
Yeah.
And they literally don't know how to scale and grow because their chemical cost to service cost is like right there. And it's like, you can't stay, you're sinking. You have weights on you and you're just treading water. And that's where guys don't understand that. So when you get in and you're starting to figure out, okay, where is my price range going to sit? Okay, DNA said 250 accounts, then I can hire a guy. Hold on.
Pump the brakes.
Pump the brakes. Remember, we're just skimming the top here. Do the math.
Yeah.
Do the math, find the cost, figure out what's going on, figure out what chemicals you're using, and is that going to be able to cover everything that you can take care of?
Yeah.
Or do you need to start to manipulate that? Because there's some products we actually probably wouldn't have to buy. But that means we'd be using more of another product.
True.
So is that worth it? I don't know. You got to sit down and do the math.
Find out.
You got to find out. You got to do some tests. You got to see, does it make sense? Does it not make sense? So those are all the little things when it comes into bringing on somebody. And it is a lot.
Yeah.
We've covered a ton of different things, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's the reality of growth. And that's just the beginning.
I know, seriously.
Yeah. If that's fun enough, if you remember all those things, that's just the start of it. And there's a lot more because that's not even employee number 2.
Yeah. It's a whole nother ball game.
And that was just the text. That's not even talking about getting somebody in the office.
Yeah.
And then your office errors and customers canceling because an office personnel was upset or didn't answer the phone or didn't show up to work or whatever it may be. And you start losing customers.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a massive opportunity cost, and you'll learn that a lot. If you're not going to school, or if you are going to school, you hear that in the accounting world is your opportunity costs. You have to do that and see where's that variable.
Seriously.
And how much am I losing because this person sucks? It's pretty alarming.
I think so. I think it'd be good. We actually could probably, what we talked about is we're going to continue this series anyways. I know we kind of just quickly threw out the first ones a few weeks ago about what does those first steps actually look like to starting your own pest control business, getting your own routes, getting your own customers. And we're going to do some more stuff on the sales side, and we're going to continue on this path of more employees and more office personnel. But I know we went through a lot, but I hope this helped,
Yeah. Oh, there's so much there, that we hit on. And once again, we didn't go deeper than just the very top.
Yeah.
So we skimmed the top on that, just going over a few of those costs. Are there more? Of course there are more. Did we miss something? Of course we missed a lot. There's so much that we're dealing with because we didn't even talk about uniforms.
Yeah, that's true.
We didn't talk about PPE. We didn't talk about all the additional things that you put inside a vehicle. We didn't talk about the additional gas card that you're going to have to get. And if you don't have one, then what are you going to do? You're just going to give a kid a credit card and hope for the best.
Yeah.
So all of those little things, start to accumulate as you're starting to, progress through, and grow your business. But then for the people that are just in it and listening, that's the stuff that everybody's going through. You don't see it. You come in, you sit down at your desk, you clock in, and you work and you get paid for it. You don't see how much that laptop costs.
No.
You don't get to see that stupid little headset that you have that sits at your desk that was $250. You don't see that.
Yeah.
You literally just show up and work. And if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. Whatever. Who cares? I'll figure it out. It's your problem, not mine, right? That's all those little things that somebody is thinking about. Somebody above you, management, owner, that's the stuff that they have to worry about and they're thinking about. So being that person in that position, are you creating a bigger headache and a bigger expense for the company? Or are you helping reduce those costs
True.
and making things more efficient? That's a good question to ask, especially after everything you just heard.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing a little bit more of what is involved when it comes to a company and hiring their first employee. You're not just $2,400, $3,000, $5,000 a month. You're so much more than that.
Yeah.
And you are the variable cost. You are the reason why
True.
those expenses go up higher or they're less. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. This is a good one. So please, if you haven't listened to the last couple on this series, which we'll come up with the name on the next episode of whatever the series is called, go back and listen because it's actually been fun for me. You know, it's been fun for me too because I jumped into it after the business side was already established. And, you know, guys, it's been a little quiet on some of the social media stuff, and it's been a while since we've had a guest on.
Yeah.
So guys that are listening, you know, I do see that the listens and the downs are still coming in, but please, we want your feedback because it helps us. And obviously, if you've made it this far in the episode, thank you. You know, we couldn't be here without you guys' likes and shares and how much we've been able to grow. I know we've been a little absent, but starting this point, we're getting back to our Monday and Thursday drop.
Yes.
So please stay tuned. And thank you for listening to the DNA Pest Control Podcast.